Hello and welcome. Today we're looking at whether this is the Muhoozi Project final phase and what it would mean if Museveni appointed Muhoozi as Vice President. A Ugandan MP has come out to propose that President Yoweri Museveni should appoint his son, military chief and advisor on special operations, as the country's next Vice President. Now, we'll be looking at what this would mean if Museveni appointed Muhoozi as Vice President, and would that be a clear father-to-son succession plot, the final phase, and the final phase of the Muhoozi Project rumors? Remember that in 2013, former Ugandan spy master General David Sejusa, previously Tinyefuza, alleged that there was a plan to eliminate senior military and government officials opposed to the so-called plot to ensure that General Muhoozi Kainerugaba succeeds his father as president. The plot came to be widely known as the Muhoozi Project. Years later, General Muhoozi expressed interest in running for the country's topmost office. The first son even formed an organization called the Patriotic League of Uganda, or PLU, to work as a vehicle for his political ambition. Muhoozi even said that while Sejusa had coined the Muhoozi Project phrase to destroy him, Ugandans had turned what would have been a curse into a blessing, rising through the ranks in the National Army to become the UPDF's topmost boss, that is the Chief of Defence Forces, or CDF. Muhoozi is now a political force and a key element of Uganda's transition, or sometimes succession, debates. His father Museveni, aged 81, has ruled Uganda since 1986, when Muhoozi was a boy of 12 years. Museveni led a bush war for 5 years before his National Resistance Army, or NRA, captured power 40 years ago. The long-serving Ugandan leader was re-elected for another 5-year term in January 2026 and will now extend his rule to a cool 45 years by the end of his new term, that is in 2031. In his inaugural speech as president, that is in 1986, Museveni diagnosed the problem of Africa as leaders who overstay in power, and it seems he now considers the problem of Africa as oversleeping, as he said during his recent trip to Kenya. So, Muhoozi as Vice President. Kanyum MP Simon Peter Polot Okolinga says it's high time Museveni appointed Muhoozi the Vice President. MP Opolot Okolinga believes that General Muhoozi will help to tackle corruption in government based on his method of work in the UPDF. The MP also says that the Inspector General of Government, that's the IGG, fears to crack the whip against a number of officials, especially those above her in the rankings of the National Order of Precedence. The legislator says that Muhoozi would be in charge of discipline in government. The proposal by Opoloto Kolinga already has the backing of other MPs such as Twala Fadil, the legislator representing Tingei County. Interestingly, and not unsurprising, Muhoozi recently gave Fadil Twala a coveted patriotic officer number. Similar to those numbers, the patriotic officer numbers, or POs, are similar to those of Museveni's NRA Bush War Resistance Officer numbers, or ROs. And is this the final phase of the Muhoozi Project? If Museveni appointed Muhoozi Vice President, it would appear as the final phase of Sejusa's 2013 rumor on the so-called Muhoozi Project. As Vice President, Muhoozi would be closer to the throne, becoming the person to take over if his father resigned or was unable to rule. The Constitution of the Republic of Uganda allows the Vice President to assume the office of President if the President dies, resigns, or is removed from office. If such scenarios happen, a Vice President serves as a President until elections are conducted in a period of 6 months. and such a vice president and president is eligible to run to keep the office he or she has been running as acting president. And if there is about a year or less remaining, the vice president and president can complete the term of office that his or her previous boss had begun but was unable to complete. What would this mean for the NRM, which already has some tensions? There are certainly a number of people opposed to the Muhoozi Project within the ruling party, that is the National Resistance Movement, or NRM. Bushville veterans like Major General retired Kaindo Tafire have opposed any plots for Muhoozi to succeed his father. The old guard, such as Tafire, would likely be sidelined, with a new crop of post-1986 politicians and the military men taking over through top government and military positions. In fact, in the UPDF, where Muhoozi has a lot of control, post-1986 officers are in charge. Such tensions within the ruling NRM might escalate if Muhoozi became vice president. There are those who are interested in the country's top office and who feel that the ruling party should use its structures to choose someone that should succeed Museveni. But Muhoozi has tactically been wooing some top NRM leaders, including deputies to his father and national chairman of the NRM, such as second national vice chairperson and Speaker of Parliament Anita Among. And Anita Among once confessed she believed in the trinity of Museveni, the father, the son, and maybe the mother. Apart from the NRM, Muhoozi's vice presidency would be greeted with criticism from the opposition, who would see the appointment as a plot aimed at grabbing power and keeping it within the first family. Even the international community would not be amused. They would talk of Uganda turning into a monarchy, and the opposition would likely demand that the West stops funding Uganda under Museveni and his son, not forgetting a call for sanctions. Opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi, or Bobi Wine, has previously told Muhoozi that he can only inherit his father's properties and not Uganda. And would military become equivalent to government? If Museveni appointed Muhoozi as vice president, the lines between government and the military would be blurred, with the UPDF most likely engaging in a number of projects and running the affairs of the state and government. Already, the NRM the army is in engineering and construction and handles Mount Beyond projects through its engineering brigade. Muhoozi has been talking of his plans for Kampala capital city and talking big about ridding government of corruption. If Museveni appointed Muhoozi, the trajectory of Uganda's political future would clearly be shifting from father to son. But whether Muhoozi will become vice president will be clear in coming months when Museveni unveils his cabinet. And that's our take on what would happen if Muhoozi was appointed vice president and what it would mean for succession politics and for the future of this country. This has been the third part of our series on the Cabinet Fever 2026, with our team making projections on who Museveni is likely to appoint his cabinet that will run from 2026 to 2031. Let us know of your thoughts on this report and our projections in the comments. You could also send us an email on powertimesug@gmail.com, or even send us a WhatsApp message on +256 705 690 819. Thank you for watching.